Nobody knows when the next big war will be. It could be tomorrow. It could be 100 years from now. But one thing is certain, the world is always changing, and with change comes conflict. In this essay, we will imagine what a World War III might look like between the years 2020 and 2050. It's important to remember that war is always unpredictable. However, by looking at current trends and technologies, we can make some educated guesses about the future of warfare. One thing is for sure, a future World War III would be very different from the wars of the past. In the past, wars were fought over land and resources. But in the 21st century, the most valuable resources are information and technology. This means that future wars will be fought on multiple fronts, including in cyberspace. The very nature of war is changing, and to understand what a future World War III might look like, we need to understand these changes. World War II was a global conflict that claimed the lives of millions of people. It was a war fought on a massive scale, with entire countries mobilized for battle. While a future World War III would be a terrible tragedy, it is unlikely to be as deadly or as large as World War II. There are several reasons for this. First, the development of nuclear weapons has made large-scale warfare too risky. Second, the rise of globalization has made countries more interconnected than ever before. This means that war between major powers would have devastating economic consequences for everyone involved. Finally, the nature of warfare itself is changing. In the past, armies relied on brute force to achieve victory. However, in the 21st century, technology is playing an increasingly important role on the battlefield. This means that future wars are more likely to be fought with smaller, more agile forces. These forces will rely on advanced technology to gain an advantage over their enemies. Cyber warfare is the use of digital attacks to damage or disrupt an enemy's computer systems. It is a relatively new form of warfare, but it has already had a significant impact on international relations. In a future World War III, cyber warfare would play a central role. Cyber attacks could be used to disable an enemy's critical infrastructure, such as power grids, communication networks, and financial systems. They could also be used to spread propaganda and sow discord among the population. For example, imagine a sophisticated cyber attack that cripples the stock market of a major power. This could lead to economic chaos and undermine public confidence in the government. Or, imagine a virus that shuts down a country's power grid in the dead of winter. The possibilities for disruption are endless, and the consequences could be devastating. As countries become more reliant on technology, they also become more vulnerable to cyber attacks. Section 4. No more ideologies. The wars of the 20th century were often ideological wars. World War II, for example, was a fight against fascism. The Cold War was a struggle between communism and capitalism. However, it is unlikely that a future World War III would be fought over ideology. Instead, it is more likely to be driven by competition for resources, such as water, food, and energy. As the global population continues to grow, these resources will become increasingly scarce. This could lead to conflict between countries that need these resources to survive. Another potential flashpoint is the rise of nationalism and regional powers. As the global order shifts and changes, we are seeing a resurgence of nationalism in many parts of the world. This could lead to increased tensions and even conflict between countries. In a world defined by interconnected economies and shared challenges like climate change, ideological conflicts are less likely to be the primary drivers of war. Section 5. The nuclear question. One of the most common questions about a future World War III is whether or not it would go nuclear. While it is impossible to say for sure, there are several reasons to believe that nuclear weapons would not be used in a future global conflict. First, as mentioned earlier, the use of nuclear weapons would be incredibly risky. It could easily escalate a conflict and lead to a full-scale nuclear exchange, which would be catastrophic for everyone involved. Second, there is a growing international norm against the use of nuclear weapons. This norm is enshrined in the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, which has been signed by most of the world's countries. While the threat of nuclear war remains a very real concern, it is important to remember that the world has lived under the shadow of nuclear weapons for over 70 years without them being used. Section 6. A world transformed. A future World War III would be a tragedy of unimaginable proportions. However, it is important to remember that war is not inevitable. By understanding the potential causes of conflict, we can work to prevent them from happening in the first place. If such a war were to occur, it would fundamentally reshape the geopolitical landscape. Alliances would shift, economies would be shattered, and the global balance of power would be irrevocably altered. The aftermath would likely see a renewed focus on diplomacy and international cooperation, as the world grapples with the devastating consequences of the conflict. The future is uncertain, but by working together, we can create a more peaceful and just world for all.